When it comes to boosting performance, you can take a leaf out of this Roadster's book because in just 1 year, the Trident 660 has gained 14 horsepower and 4 Newton meters. It now puts 95 horsepower down onto the tarmac. And what else makes it sportier than before? You'll find out right now. Hello and a very warm welcome to 1000 PS TV. In 2020, the Trident 660 first hit the market. In 2025, it got a major electronics update. And just 1 year later, for model year 2026, there's big news again. From now on, it gets the 660cc engine with 95 horsepower from the Daytona 660, and that means we now have 95 horsepower and 68 Newton meters on tap. 14 horsepower more and 4 Newton meters more than before. Even so, the bike is of course still A2 license compatible, which makes the Trident 660 a strong candidate in this roadster category. What's more, 80% of the maximum torque, so roughly 55 Newton meters, is available across almost the entire rev range. And every time you open the throttle, you've basically always got at least close to 55 Newton meters of shove on hand. So I reckon this is going to be a really strong contender for the coming season. Yes, 3 throttle bodies now, 1 for each cylinder, instead of a single central one like before. That's the biggest technical change inside the engine. It follows the Daytona 660, which already comes with this engine. The airbox on the Trident 660 has been made larger too, and the cylinder head has been revised as well. And that's how you end up with 95 horsepower overall, 14 horsepower more than before. Of course, higher performance also brings different demands for the exhaust system. More power also means more exhaust gases, and for that reason, the Daytona 660's exhaust system is basically fitted here too. And the cooling system has been enlarged as well. We've got a slightly bigger surface area and a different fan. All of that to do the 95 horsepower output justice. Naturally, more power also means more fuel consumption. We're now at a WMTC consumption figure of 4.9 litres, and the gearbox has also had a major overhaul. First gear is significantly longer than before because of the higher peak power. Gears 2, 3, 4 and 5 have also been adapted, and 6th gear is identical again to the previous model. Because of the higher maximum rev limit of 12,650 revs, that still means a slightly higher top speed. On the electronics front, there isn't much new to report for the Trident 660 because it only got a comprehensive electronics upgrade a year ago. So I'll just quickly sum up that on this bike we have lean angle sensitive assistance systems. In other words, there's a 6-axis IMU on board feeding data to the lean angle sensitive traction control. That can optionally be switched off as well, but cornering ABS can't be switched off. The law now forbids that, and it's only still permitted on off-road capable motorcycles. Aside from that, it's fully loaded here with cruise control, connectivity that's included from the factory, and of course a quick shifter with blipper function. And that has been newly calibrated because the bike now has different gear ratios, so it's been adapted to match. And I spoke to a lead engineer at Triumph, and he said tuning the blipper alone is almost as much work as tuning a fuel injection system. Anyway, I have to say it's been done really well. The blipper has short shift travel, and on downshifts it works smoothly without any jerkiness. So that's genuinely a great job, and you can tell Triumph has really put a lot of heart and soul into it. And in model year 2026, Triumph is sticking with the cockpit setup too, the mix of LCD and TFT display. That gets debated a lot, and some people say it's no longer up to date. But I have to admit, in terms of readability, there's hardly anything better. The LCD cockpit gives me crystal clear information on speed and revs, and the TFT arranges all the other info neatly. What more do you want? And I also think the round instrument suits a roadster like the Trident 660 really well. It all works together nicely, so from my side, there's nothing to criticize there. In terms of looks and styling, there are no major changes to report on the Trident 660, but there is a bit of a refresh. They've given it a handlebar that's 2 centimeters wider. Okay, I have to admit, I neither see that nor feel it. And there's also a new tank. It still holds 14 liters, but it now looks noticeably more muscular and substantial, and that really suits the Trident 660's more grown-up look. Last but not least, Triumph has decided to fit a 2-piece seat instead of the previous 1-piece saddle, and that gives customers the optional possibility of fitting a pillion seat cover. And that, of course, also boosts the Trident 660's sporty appearance. So, small but fine tweaks to the bike that do contribute to it looking and feeling noticeably sportier, not only because of its 95 horsepower peak output. Up front, the suspension still uses Showa components, a big piston fork with 12 centimeters of travel that isn't adjustable, and at the rear, a shock where I can adjust preload and now new, also rebound damping. Aside from that, the chassis has of course also been tweaked a bit for the new performance, namely for the 3 throttle bodies. They simply need a bit more space within the frame, and for that reason room has been made basically only on the inside of the frame. Triumph really made a point of not having to make the entire upper frame wider because they absolutely wanted to keep the narrow standover. In other words, they still wanted to make it easy for shorter riders to reach the ground, and they've achieved that. So they've essentially only widened the frame slightly on the inside to create space for the throttle bodies, but the standover is still very compact. And combined with the 810mm seat height, it's genuinely no problem for shorter people and gives you a lot of confidence at the lights or when maneuvering. If that's still too tall, you can optionally order a seat that's 25mm lower. And as for suspension performance, I have to say we're riding fairly briskly here on these wonderful Spanish roads, and I think the compromise between precision, comfort and agility has been done really well. So we've got a good balance between sportiness and comfort. For tyres, Triumph uses the Michelin Road 5, which also performs excellently here on dry roads in Spain. In this power class, you honestly don't need more than that. Still a brilliant all-round tyre. And the braking system comes from Nissan and works, I'd say, in a completely unobtrusive way. Braking power is absolutely fine, even with just one finger on the lever. It's not tuned to be super sharp, but that's not what it should be on an all-round and beginner-friendly bike anyway. You don't want every braking maneuver to have such a bite that ABS has to intervene again, but rather it's set up so you can dose it nicely, and both beginners and more experienced riders can achieve exactly what they want: short stopping distances and a very transparent brake feel at the adjustable hand lever. So what's the final verdict on the Triumph Trident 660 for model year 2026? Well, probably first and foremost that it's now the best equipped motorcycle in its class, with the full package of lean angle sensitive assistance systems, cruise control, a quick shifter, and so on. All at the standard entry price. That's pretty exceptional, and that's likely the big advantage over the competition, especially now that it also has 95 horsepower on the spec sheet. Because compared with the Yamaha MT-07 or the Suzuki GSX-8S, for example, that's a real unique selling point. And of course, A2 riders will be especially pleased because here you can fully use the maximum power limit. That makes the Trident 660 particularly interesting for A2 license holders because for everyone else, the Trident 800 is of course also a hot candidate. It probably mainly comes down to what license class you have. I also think the finish on the bike has been really well done for this price class. It's by no means something you can just take for granted. You don't see any cables or hydraulic lines sticking out anywhere. A really finely finished bike. And what I also really like is the insanely long service interval of 16,000 kilometers. And that, according to the manufacturer, makes Triumph a very cost-effective bike to run. They even talk about up to 50% cheaper compared with competitors in this segment. And hand on heart, when it comes to the 95 horsepower, I don't think you absolutely need it in practice because the previous model already performed very well at low and mid revs. And today, I watched the rev counter on the dash a bit. Most of the time, even when you're riding briskly, you're between 6,000 and 8,000 revs. And really, to actually call up this extra power that's now there, you'd have to rev it up to at least 10,000. And in practice, you do that relatively rarely because it's tiring and the noise level rises accordingly. Still, it's of course very nice to have this feature. And in general, you have to say the Trident 660 now offers an extremely complete overall package in the beginner roadster segment. Because with other manufacturers, I either have to pay extra for the electronics that are on here or I don't get them at all. And Triumph delivers a complete, well-tuned overall package. The engine works beautifully. It spins eagerly and lively through the rev range. If I need maximum power, then I just have to wind it out. That's simply what a 3-cylinder is like. That's in the nature of the beast. It might not be able to match a parallel twin or even a V-twin in that respect, but in return what you get here is a very lively power delivery across the whole rev range. And the rest of the bike's setup is simply very cohesive, very agile, very easy to ride, beginner-friendly but still not boring for experienced riders. Solid brakes that aren't overly aggressive, and a full electronics package that also lets me ride safely. A very comfortable riding position for average height people. So I'm just really impressed with the bike, and I have to say the price point is spot on as well. 8,695 euros in Germany, 9,695 euros in Austria. That's an absolutely fair price for what's on offer here. And I think the rest of the competition will have a pretty tough time this year going up against the Trident 660. Right then, that's it from me again from the first test ride on the Trident 660. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave me a like. You've surely already subscribed to the 1000 PS channel, and I'm looking forward to us being out and about together again. See you soon, your Clemo.